Thanks very much, everybody, for being here. I'm going to start with some acknowledgments. Today is a day about vision, about accomplishment, about promises made and promises kept. But it's also a day about creation of jobs, economic development, and improving the passenger experience here at LaGuardia. So with that, I'm going to start with recognizing three labor leaders. Mario Salento, President of the New York State AFL-CIO, Gary LaBarbera, President of the Building and Construction Trades Council. The passenger experience, which a famous American called parts of this airport a third world facility. We're committed to fixing that, and that's what today's announcement is about. So I want to acknowledge Mike Minerva from American Airlines, Jeff Goodell from JetBlue, Pranav Trivedi from United Airlines, Andrea Goodpasture from Southwest Airlines, and Lisa Pierce from Air Canada. The groundbreaking today is being done with private capital, private equity and debt. The partner that was chosen in a robust competitive RFP is LaGuardia Gateway Partners, represented by George Casey, Jane Garvey. I detected more applause for Jane. Stuart Steves, Magnus Eriksson from Skanska, and Richard Kennedy from Skanska. I want to recognize and thank the Port Authority Board. I'll mention John Degnan in a minute, but Steve Cohn, Vice Chair of the Port Authority Board of Commissioners, is with us. Scott Reckler, past Vice Chair and current Commissioner. Jeff Linford, Board Member of the Port Authority. And Mike Fascitelli, Board Member of the Port Authority. I want to recognize Tony Collins, who's a member of the Airport Advisory Panel led by Dan Tishman. Jeff Wilpon, who just joined us. Jeff is the Chief Operating Officer of the National League champion New York Mets. Tom Prendergast, Chairman and CEO of the MTA. Christine Nicholas, President of New York State Tourism Advisory Council. And Reverend Patrick Young, General Secretary and Treasurer, MPAC. Lastly, I want to acknowledge my colleagues at the Port Authority, many of whom are here with us today, from aviation to engineering to law to finance to procurement to the Inspector General. The entire Port Authority was focused and dedicated to this, and I want to thank my colleagues. So thank you all for coming today. Less than a year ago, Governor Cuomo unveiled his vision for LaGuardia Airport. He called for tearing down the existing airport and transforming it into a new 21st century state-of-the-art facility that would befit the state of New York and the greatest city in the world. The governor consistently pushed us to think bigger and to plan for the development of the entire airport. Today, I'm extraordinarily proud to announce that we are breaking ground on a new 21st century airport for the state of New York, the first phase of construction of an entirely new airport. We're beginning the demolition of the existing facility and the construction of a new 1.3 million square foot state-of-the-art terminal. The new terminal, importantly, will be located closer to the Grand Central Parkway, which will have the effect of increasing taxiway circulation by nearly 2.5 times. That'll increase the efficiency and throughput of the airport, extraordinarily important. We'll also start construction on an entirely new roadway network a new 3,000 space parking garage, which will provide plenty of parking at the airport, and a new central hall that will link for the first time Terminal B, Central Terminal Building, with Terminal C, therefore unifying the entire airport. The new airport will add public transit access via air train from Manhattan and new ferry service. With this project, we're breaking the mold and moving beyond the status quo and delivering a large infrastructure project for this region through an innovative public-private partnership, the largest in the history of the United States. This is a $4 billion public-private partnership that's 2/3 financed by private equity and debt and existing passenger fees. Our private sector partner for the first phase of the rebuilding of the new airport, LaGuardia Gateway Partners, will design, build, finance, operate, and maintain the new terminal. Risk of construction will be transferred from the public to the private sector with a guaranteed maximum price contract. The project will be delivered in an expedited time frame, while the head house, the terminal, the first structure that passengers will see when they enter the new airport, will be delivered in a little over 3 years, and the majority of the project will be completed in slightly over 5. Under the lease agreement, LGP, LaGuardia Gateway Partners, has agreed to a 30% MWBE participation goal, which is consistent with the governor's statewide goal of 30%, the highest in the nation. I'm also pleased to report that the Port Authority and Delta are in advanced discussions regarding the redevelopment of Delta's terminals to the east of where we stand today, Terminals C and D. Any transaction would, of course, be subject to the approval of the boards of the Port Authority and Delta. Before I turn to George Casey, who is representing LaGuardia Gateway Partners, our private sector partner, I want to thank Port Authority Chairman John Degnan, Vice Chair Steve Cohn, past Vice Chair and Commissioner Scott Reckler, Airport Advisory Chairman Dan Tishman, Queensboro President Melinda Katz, Tony Collins, who I mentioned is with us today, and other members of the Governor's Advisory Panel for their leadership and support in moving this project forward. Again, I also want to thank my colleagues at the Port Authority across the agency. I want to thank our airline partners, many of whom are here today: American, Southwest, United, JetBlue, Air Canada, Frontier, and Virgin America. And lastly, a new airport like this, a project this size and complexity, doesn't happen without our colleagues in organized labor. Thanks again to the building trades and the other unions that are building this airport. I'll now turn it over to George Casey.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Pat. My comments will be brief, but first let me acknowledge my partners on the LaGuardia Gateway Partners Board, Jane Garvey, Magnus Erickson, Bill Horwitz, and in particular from LaGuardia Gateway Partners, our President and CEO, Stuart Steeves. For LGP, as the private sector partner in what is the largest public-private partnership in the history of the United States, the sound of business. We love the sound of business. Yes, we'll say yes to that. As LGP, is it a great honor to stand before you all today as we break ground on a new airport for the state of New York. Working together with the Port Authority, the state of New York, and our airline partners, this is a true public-private partnership on a $4 billion project, 2/3 of which is financed by the private sector and existing passenger fees. We at LaGuardia Gateway Partners are incredibly proud to undertake the construction and operation of this important part of the overall redevelopment of LaGuardia Airport. I want to thank Pat Foy, Port Authority Chairman John Degnan, and the Port Authority Board of Commissioners and our airline partners for helping to move this project forward. In particular, thanks to Governor Cuomo for your vision and leadership for a new airport for the state of New York, and thank you, Vice President Biden, for your leadership. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of our airline partners in this critical project, Mike Minerva from American Airlines, and he promised he would only say nice things, right, Mike? Mike represents the 8 airlines we've been dealing with in bringing this project to a success, so Mike.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Minerva, I'm with American Airlines. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and speak on behalf of American and the other airlines who worked with LGP and the Port Authority to put together the deal that leads to the groundbreaking today. These airlines, and I would like to, some of them here, and I'd like to recognize the individuals who are here today and ask them to stand up. We have JetBlue, Jeff Goodell is here, and Andrea Goodpasture from Southwest, Pranav and Lisa from United, Lisa from Air Canada, along with some of our other airline partners who could not make it today. But this group of airlines will collectively, over the next 30 years or so, contribute $10 billion to fund the construction and management of the new facility. And we agreed to do so because of our shared desire to improve the customer experience here at LaGuardia. Thank you, guys. The negotiations that resulted in the agreement to proceed with the project reached a successful conclusion because of the tireless efforts of a number of people. I'll start with Vice President Biden for his energy and focus on this project and for highlighting in a very colorful and memorable way the need to get it done. Governor Cuomo for making LaGuardia an absolute priority and for his personal involvement, as well as that of several senior members of his team, keeping everyone at the table, in particular Rick Cotton. LaGuardia Gateway partners, George Casey, Stuart Steve, Warren Adams, who could not be here today, with whom we airlines have forged a close partnership. And also I'd like to thank my team at American Airlines, in operations, Loretta Bove and Pasquale Alvarez, and on the airport and government affairs side, Charlotte Techlitz, Kendra Kennedy, and Daryl Towns. They make my job much, much easier. And last but certainly not least, the Port Authority. You know, the Port Authority takes a few knocks, but let me tell you something. This deal could not have gotten done without the hard work of really a lot of excellent people at the Port Authority, primarily Pat Foy, David Kagan, and Rich Smythe. And Pat, I really want to commend him personally for his involvement in this deal. He would take calls from me any day, any hour, and I was usually not happy about something. And Pat always listened, he followed up, he pushed back, he cajoled, he drew lines, he encouraged, and you know, I probably shouldn't be saying all these nice things about him because I keep hearing he's leaving, so it's not going to do me any good, but he absolutely deserves an outsized share of the credit for getting us to where we are today. And I'll conclude. This is an exciting day, an important day for American and my fellow airline colleagues. We're embarking on a project that will make LaGuardia a world-class 21st century airport. We look forward to a great future at LaGuardia and continuing our relationship with the Port Authority and LaGuardia Gateway partners for many years to come. And now I'd like to ask Henry Kuykendall of Delta to take the podium.
Thanks, Mike, for that warm welcome. Good afternoon, New Yorkers. Thank you also to Pat Foy and the Port Authority and George Casey and LaGuardia Gateway partners. This is truly a monumental day for the history of the airport and the state of New York. At Delta, we are honored to be a part of Governor Cuomo's vision for a 21st century state-of-the-art airport. LaGuardia Gateway partners and the Port Authority on moving forward with the construction on the western half of the airport. Delta is in advanced discussions with the Port Authority with respect to the redevelopment of our own facilities. We are committed to developing the eastern half of the airport on a parallel track with the new Terminal B. Delta is proud to operate a key hub out of this airport. The redevelopment aligns with our long history investing in New York and our ongoing commitment to providing an exceptional experience for New Yorkers. not just here, but across the state. Today's groundbreaking is proof that the private sector and the government working together can deliver great things. Congratulations again on this important milestone for a new LaGuardia Airport. And thank you, Governor Cuomo and Vice President Biden, for your vision. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, and the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. What an exciting day. What a great group. And a special, special guest. And we always love when he comes to New York. Give Vice President Joe Biden a big New York welcome. You heard from the major program participants already, but I just want to acknowledge first Pat Foy, the Executive Director of the Port Authority, who's been doing a great job, and the whole board at the Port Authority. George Casey and the LGBT team who really worked it through. Congratulations, George. Michael Minerva, American Airlines, JetBlue, United Southwest, and Air Canada, thank you for the partnership and thank you for seeing this through with us. We've been having good conversations with Ed Bastian and Mr. Kuykendall from Delta Airlines, so we thank them and welcome them here today. Our great neighbor, Jeff Wilpon, and we're very excited about the synergy between what we're doing here and the stadium and Willets Point. Let's give Jeff a round of applause. We have our brothers and sisters from the labor movement here, represented by Gary LaBarber and Mario Salento, and they actually have to do the work, so let's really give them a round of applause. And on my team, my special counsel who has really been overseeing this project and a lot of the capital construction projects, we call him a sensitive Robert Moses, Rick Cotton. Let's give him a round of applause. This is an exciting day. What we are doing is exciting. How we are doing it is exciting, and what it represents is exciting. This airport is really the front door to New York when you think about it. This is $20 billion in commerce. Most people who come to New York come right through this airport. And this airport has been long overdue for a new airport, as we all know. And this is not just going to be a real rebuilding of what was. This is not going to be a rebuilding of LaGuardia. It's going to be a whole new airport. One unified, contiguous, state-of-the-art airport for the first time. It's going to have an air train that connects the entire airport from one end to the other. It's then going to have an air train that takes you right to the LIRR, so you can get right into Manhattan from the airport, and you don't need to get into a car on the way back into Manhattan. It's going to have a ferry that is a water ferry that accesses the airport, and it's going to be a reconfigured airport which will move closer to Grand Central Parkway by about 600 feet, which increases the flight operations 240%. So you have more flights coming in, flights turning around faster in a totally state-of-the-art facility. So we're excited about that. The construction of it, 18,000 direct and indirect jobs. When it's totally done, we're looking at about a $7 billion total project for the entire new airport, but it's an investment in New York. What's even more exciting is we're not just building an airport. We're building an airport which is a piece of an entirely new vision that revitalizes New York. Yes, there's going to be a new airport at LaGuardia. We're also building the air train. The air train can take you to Penn Station, and it's going to be a new Penn Station, Moynihan Station, state-of-the-art train facility that also should have been redone a long time ago. It's a new airport that's going to be accessed by 2 new tracks from the Long Island Railroad, second track and a third track. So it'll be easier for people from Long Island to actually commute, not just to this airport, but also to Penn Station. We're also building an east side access so you can get from Penn Station to Grand Central Station. We're also building an expansion of the Javits Center, a $1 billion expansion to make the Javits Center one of the most competitive convention centers in the United States. So LaGuardia in and of itself is exciting, but LaGuardia as part of what amounts to a $100 billion infrastructure program, the largest reinvestment in New York State's infrastructure in modern history, and that's long overdue. Part of that, Tom Prendergast is here, head of the MTA, is a $27 billion investment, largest capital investment in history in the MTA, because that is going to be the future, moving more and more people through mass transit rather than through cars. And I'm proud to be the governor who made the largest investment in MTA's history. And let's thank Tom Prendergast. What's also important is how we're doing it. This is not the way government normally builds. It's all going to be done through public-private sector partnerships, because one of the most important things in life to know is to know what you don't know. Government is not the best builder. Let's just leave it at that, okay? Government does a lot of things well, but it is not in the business of construction, development, construction management. The private sector does that. So, public-private sector partnerships where government is in full partnership with the private sector, but the private sector does the construction, does the financing, does the management. That's what we have here at LaGuardia, and that's what we're going to have on all our projects. Design, build, construction, which is much faster than what we've done in the past. It's what we're doing on the Tappan Zee Bridge right now. The government lays out the vision, but we go to the private sector and they actually determine and bid the best way to build it. So it's not just the largest investment. It's not just the most ambitious vision. The methodology, the how is different and is informed and is educated, and we know it's the right way to go forward because the successful projects we've done of late all follow that model. So it's the what, it's the how, and it's what it symbolizes. And I was talking to the Vice President about this before we came out. For many years, New York sort of lost its mojo, let's call it. You know, what made New York New York is its ambition, is its creativity, is its capacity. New Yorkers never said no. There's nothing that we couldn't do. Same thing for the country. We were always the first, always the best, always the most creative. And we never backed down from a challenge. You look at the past few decades, there has been remarkably little investment in us, in our infrastructure, in our systems, in our transportation. As a matter of fact, there's been a constant deterioration of our system over time. And you've seen other cities, you've seen other countries, frankly, around the globe, who have been more aggressive who have been building while we've been standing still. I was the HUD secretary during the Clinton administration. I used to go into a town, and as I was flying in, I would count the cranes. And I would say, you are either building and growing, or you are dying slowly. Because either you are continuing to advance your development, or your competition is advancing their development. And for many, many years, New York just stood still. Just stood still. This is the exact opposite. This is saying, yes, we can, and yes, we will. We're going to take on the big projects. We're going to take on the gutsy projects. And we're going to do it, and we're going to do it quickly. No more 10-year projects. We're going to get them done quickly the way we can get them done. Because that's what people expect. Get it done right, get it done well, get it done efficiently, and get it done effectively. And we have the capacity to do that. Well, it's going to be hard. It's hard to build an airport. Yes, it is hard to build an airport. It's hard to build a railroad track. All of it is hard. But by the way, it was always hard. It was hard when they first built this airport. It was hard when they built the Empire State Building in the middle of a Great Depression. It was hard when they built 700 miles of track underground to build the New York City subway system. It was hard in 1837 when they built a 60-mile aqueduct to Westchester to bring water down to New York City. It was always hard. But we never said no. We said yes. And we did it. And if it was easy, anybody would do it. We did it, and that's what makes us the leader. That's what makes New York, New York. It's what makes America, America. We never back down from a challenge. And we met every challenge, and we met every challenge with skill and ingenuity and creativity. Now, on this project, and the reason I'm so glad the Vice President's involved, is he really did put his finger on it, and he often does. When he said, and we kid him about it, that if you landed in LaGuardia, you would think, and you were blindfolded and they took off the blindfold, you would think you were in a third world country. It was his way of saying the king has no clothes. And he was right. And I've kidded the Vice President about that a few times because I enjoy it. And sometimes we do what we enjoy. But that actually gives the Vice President's quote short shrift, because that's not what he said. He said, if you landed in the airport in Hong Kong blindfolded, and you took off your blindfold, you would think you were in a modern state-of-the-art airport, and you would think you're in the United States. If you landed in LaGuardia blindfolded, you would think that you were in a third world country. The Vice President's point was more profound. They are passing us by internationally. They are developing and they are building. Go to the Hong Kong airport, go to the Dubai airport, go to the European airports, and look at their front door, and look at their invitation, and look at what they're saying when you land, and then look at this country, and look at New York, the greatest state in the nation, and look at how they're moving and we're standing still. That was the Vice President's point. Invest in infrastructure, invest in transportation. It is the circulatory system of this nation. It drives the economy. And if you're not investing and you're not building, you're standing still, everyone is going to pass you by. He was 100% right. I'm just proud to be a governor of the state who heeded his words and stepped up to the plate, because he was right. And what New Yorkers are saying, Mr. Vice President, is nobody's passing us by. You're right about the country. You're right about New York. The difference is New Yorkers are going to do something about it. And we're stepping up a $100 billion plan to rebuild the fundamental systems of this state, because we are the premier city and premier state on the globe, and we're going to stay that way. And we thank you for opening our eyes and giving us that pride. We also thank the Vice President because the federal government had many conditions and many roles in this airport. And although it's always a pleasure to deal with the federal government on any level, it's especially nice to have a friend in the federal government who you can call from time to time, who can be a little helpful in greasing the wheels of justice, let's call it. And the Vice President's office was very, very helpful in expediting this project. We went from announcement 2 years ago to groundbreaking today. That is lightning. And it would not have happened without the Vice President's inspiration and the Vice President's love for New York and the Vice President's ability. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Vice President Joe Biden.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wasn't so sure when I said that people would be clapping. What I also said, Governor, and I led the comment with, the greatest city in the world, and New York is, it's not hyperbole, the greatest city in the world needs and deserves, but needs the greatest infrastructure in the world. You know, the governor was talking about investment in infrastructure. It's not coincidental that from the end of World War II to the mid-70s, while the middle class was still growing, we're investing about 4% of our GDP in infrastructure. Today, we invest less than 1%. We rank 26th in the world, 26th in the world in transportation infrastructure. How can that stand? How can that stand? Governor, I'm sorry for the confusion in the schedule. I have a letter in front of my name the President doesn't have. It's VP, not P. And we had an emergency, not emergency, a scheduled national security meeting with the entire national security team representing all branches of the government to discuss getting to the bottom of what the tragedy that happened down in Orlando, Florida. And that's why I had to be late today, Governor. And I appreciate your courtesy in putting up with my being late. And we are getting to the bottom of this, and it's becoming clearer and more straightforward than a lot of us even thought. But the President will have more to say about that in the days to come. But I want to point out, I listened today to New York City's Commissioner of Police, who I think is one of the best in the nation, one of the best in the world. And what you are doing in the state, the vigilance of the New York City Police Department, the way they coordinate and work with the FBI, it surpasses every other city in the country in terms of the cooperation and the intelligence sharing. And so I just want to compliment Bill Bratton. You know, I used to have when I started, Gov, there was I ran for the Senate like you when I was a young man. I ran for office, a different office. You were smarter than I was. I ran for the Senate when I was 29 years old, and there was a guy named Vince Deanna who was politically in the state of Delaware very astute, and he decided to help me. And he used to have an expression. He said, the best place to be in politics is on the 49% of the poll on the ascendancy. And that's what happened here in LaGuardia. I'm not so sure what I had to say back in January of 2014 was very popular with anyone. But maybe it's because I have been in the administration referred to all the time as Mr. Infrastructure, because I'm like a broken record about what we're not doing, what we should be doing around the country in order to move us in the way we can move. Governor, I enjoy, as they say in the Senate, excuse the point of personal privilege, I go anywhere with this guy because he's a stand-up guy. He understands that part of leading is saying what you think, standing behind what you say, and even when it's not popular. The fact of the matter is, he paraphrases Edmund Burke's expression that my job is not only to reflect your views, my job is to tell you what I think we should do as well. And you can decide. If you like what I'm doing, keep me. If you don't, get rid of me. This is a guy who knows what's worth losing over. Everybody always asks me, since I won when I was a kid with no backing, they'd all come to me, everyone who ever ran statewide, my little state would come and say, what's the secret? As if I won, so there must be some secret to be able to do it. And I'd say the same thing, and I've been saying it for the last 42 years. Have you decided what is worth losing over before you run? If you don't answer that question, don't go in this business. Do something else. You'll be happier. Because there's so damn many people in our business today to get up knowing in order to keep their job or believing in order to keep their job, they got to do something they don't believe. What a hell of a way to live. I mean this sincerely. What a hell of a way to live. What a hell of a way to make a living, as my dad would say. This guy never has to wonder about that. And you know, we were talking before we came out. You know, the thing that I was with President Xi of China, and I spent a lot of time with him, more than I'm told than any other world leader. Purely happenstance, because he was vice president, his president and my president, and the state dinner decided we should get to know each other. So I've traveled 15,000 miles with him in China. I've traveled 4 days with him here. I've had at least, according to the State Department, 25 hours of private dinners with him. We were in a town called Chengdu in the Tibetan Peninsula, in the Tibetan Plain. And it was going from 2 million, I think, to 18 million people in a very short amount of time. And it was just he and I and two interpreters. And he turned to me, Governor, he said, can you define America for me? True story. I said, yes, I can. I can define it in one word: possibilities. Possibilities. Unlike any other country in the world. Any country in history. People come here, people stay here because they believe, and they really used to believe, anything is possible. Growing up, when the hell did you ever hear anybody say, I don't think we can do that? I really mean it. Think about it. I don't think we can do that? We have to settle? Folks, there's not another nation in the world, and we want them all to succeed. As they say in the little steel town I moved to from Scranton called Claymont, that's a patch on our genes, man. Look at A.T. Kearney, just to give you one example. They've been doing a poll for the last 20 years. They ask the same question to the 300 largest industrialists in the world. Same question every year. What is the place in the world, the best place in the world to invest? By a margin larger than any time since they've been keeping that survey. The last 3 years, they've said the United States of America. We're going to look at ourselves, who the hell we are. We are the epicenter of energy for the 21st century. Not the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, not Venezuela, not Nicaragua, not Nigeria. The United States of America, the North American continent, Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. We're the only country in the world that has almost in every state major research universities. Not a one around the world. No other country in the world has invested in research universities. It's government-centric. That's where all the ideas, all the new notions are generated. He didn't even talk about what the hell you're doing up in upstate New York in terms of everything from nanotechnology to revolutionizing what will soon be a thing of the past, silicon chips. Folks, we have the best workforce in the world. We're 3 times as productive as they are in Asia. That's independent studies. And ladies and gentlemen, there's not a damn thing we can't do. We have the greatest venture capitalist system in the world. It's all here. Gov, I hadn't planned on saying this, but the point is that, remember back in the late 80s, you successful businessmen and women, remember how Japan was going to own us? Remember they're going to buy Rockefeller Center, they're going to own everything? Japan Incorporated? I remember debating, and I won't mention his name, a very prominent Republican economist at the Wharton School, saying they will not be able to keep up with us. How many of you 5 years ago said the European Union, with 385 million people, will dominate the world economy? And now how many of you are still clinging to the notion that the 21st century is China's century? We want them all to succeed. But my God, China not only doesn't have enough energy, they don't have enough water. They have plans to spend close to $2 trillion to figure out how to bring water to the populated plains. Cadmium has polluted a significant portion of their arable land. We want to help them, but my God, we can't do this? We can't do this? What really prompted the comment, because I never get to go in a terminal anymore. I land and they take me out the back gate. But my son was telling me, he was in LaGuardia going to Europe, or I don't know where the hell he was going. He said there was a sign on an escalator, and I think this was in October, will be repaired by January, or something ridiculous. New York City, an escalator, will be repaired in 2 months. What in the hell's going on? No, I'm being deadly earnest, by the way. I'm being deadly earnest. Look, folks, you know all the detail. You built this airport back in 31 or so. In 1964, you built Terminal B, it opened. At the time you opened Terminal B, it accommodated 8 million passengers a year. Now, it's 14 million passengers trying to go through. The renovation is done, you'll be able to accommodate 17.5 million. What happened in the meantime? Your city and state has grown. Everything's gotten more modern, more digital. Everything. An airport. Not only the gateway to New York, it's in part here in Kennedy, the gateway to the United States of America. Look, guys, what you're about to do is that you're in a position right now, LaGuardia handles more passengers per acre than any airport in the world. 27 million passengers. The footprint isn't going to grow, but the load will. It's estimated, according to our Department of Transportation, LaGuardia will handle 34 million people by 2030. So I'm paraphrasing the governor. What in the hell are we waiting for? Is it going to change? We're going to wish it to change? Folks, the thing about the governor and the rest of you working with the governor is that you don't make any small plans, man. And you can't. The Empire said you can't think small. You think small, you will be small. Like that old football expression in Spain college, if you think you can't, you won't. It's real simple. It really isn't that complicated. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know what the hell happened. There used to be a consensus on infrastructure, an overwhelming consensus, Democrats and Republicans. If you didn't have a guy named DeWitt Clinton, you wouldn't have Erie Canal, for God's sake. And so, folks, look, this creates a virtuous cycle. JFK and LaGuardia can handle 80 million travelers per year, support 50,000 jobs, $50 billion in economic activity. And in recent years, the regional airports, like White Plains and Stewart and Albany, MacArthur, they handle another 3.8 million passengers per year. So this is only the beginning, as the governor pointed out. Because what we've learned a long time ago, not a long time ago, just probably 4 or 5 years ago, all of it's connected. It doesn't matter if you have an airport and you can't connect to the rail, if you can't connect to the highway, the interstate, if you can't connect to the ferry, you can't cross the water. This isn't rocket science. And guess what? I know how to spell labor. U-N-I-O-N, union. You guys built, you guys built the middle class. But guess what? These aren't minimum wage jobs people are going to be making. They're going to be working here. Every sandwich shop, every restaurant, every movie theater is going to they're going to hire more people. It's a virtuous cycle. It generates billions of dollars off the sidelines. And LaGuardia is a huge driver of the economy. 121,000 jobs now, 5.9 billion a year. Every year, 16 billion in total economic activity. And the renovation, another 8,000 direct jobs, 18,000 total jobs. I said good paying jobs, middle class jobs. And let me, I know I'm always referred to, among other things, as middle class Joe. In Washington, that's not meant as a compliment. That means I'm not sophisticated. It means I'm not sophisticated. But I'm pretty damn sophisticated about one thing. The reason why the wealthy are wealthy and the poor have a way up is because of a constantly growing middle class. When they do well, everybody does well. And the middle class is the glue that holds the social and political fabric of this country together. Not a joke, literally the glue. And one of the reasons why people are losing faith, is the middle class is not keeping up. For the first time this century, and 2/3 of the last century, fewer than half the American people qualify to be in the middle class, 48%. We're no longer the wealthiest middle class in the world. So folks, look, everything you're doing here, Governor, everything you're doing here matters. Not only matters to whether you can land safely and get more people in and out of the better gateway, it matters to the jobs, it matters to generating more jobs, it matters to generating more wealth. There's two things we need, and I'll end. To put this country, we've gone from recession to recovery, and we're on the verge of resurgence if we have the guts to grab it. The guts. There's two things we need badly. We need the best trained workforce in the world. That's another topic for another subject, another discussion. And we need the most modern infrastructure in the world. All you businessmen know, if you can get your product in and out of a place 20% faster, 15% cheaper, that's where you're going to go. You're not going to come here. You're not going to come to New York. You're not going to come to the States. To give you an example of how bad off we are, I took a group of Republican governors and senators and a couple Democrats down to Panama to look at the two new locks in the Panama Canal. You want to see the eighth wonder of the world, go take a look at it. It's breathtaking. Ships that are going to go through there are going to be able to carry twice as much cargo at 40% the cost, because the cost of transportation on the water does not increase exponentially. And you know what? From the port in the Gulf of Mexico all the way to Maine, there's only 3 ports in America that can accommodate those ships. Only 3. 3. And 80% of the cargo that goes both ways through that canal is U.S. cargo. U.S. cargo. The main reason I wanted to come was to say, Governor, I hope this brings a little more attention to what you do, not here in New York, what you're doing, but in other countries, in other states around the United States. It's time governors and senators and mayors of the backbone to stand up and tell the people the truth of why it's so badly needed infrastructure and what it will do. And it's the single best bang for the buck we can do. But we're so into anything, any money government spends at all must be wasted. And a lot of this is private money. So, Governor, I just hope that more governors listen to you. Take a look. I mean this sincerely. I mean this sincerely. You gotta, I won't go into it. You got other states that are big states that have given a lot of money for infrastructure and they give it back. Give it back. My God. Now, if you think our population is going to shrink, if you think we really are already lost, we're a second-rate nation, well, adopt that position. But folks, we're still the most powerful, the most entrepreneurial, the most progressive, the most capable, the most ingenious country in the world. And that's just a fact. That's not brag, that's just a simple, straightforward fact. Not one other country in the world out of this recession is doing as well as we are. And we got a lot more to do. So, Governor, thank you for leading the way. But it's not hyperbole to suggest New York, under Democrat and Republican governors over the last 100 years, has led the way in a hell of a lot of things. This is no time to stop. You're going to make a gigantic difference not only in the state of New York, but in the region. In the region. It's going to make a big difference. So thank you very, very much, and thank all you who are the people who put this together with the governor. It's consequential. Our lifeblood depends on it. Thank you all so much.
Beautiful. North and right. 3. 1, 2, 3. Look up here. Thank you.
Hey. Throw some dirt.
Throw some dirt.
Throw some dirt.
Not at us, not at us.
Don't tempt me.
He's buried in there.